minute and then we can kick it off. 1 more minute. I see more people streaming in. We are currently at 58 participants. This is quite amazing. So pull in your friends, pull in your families. Let's have a wonderful session where we get to understand another generation that is joining the workforce. All right, so our 5 minutes are up, 5 minutes on the dot, actually, according to my phone or my the East African time that I'm using. It's currently 7:05. So I'll use this opportunity to kick off another exciting, what is promising to be insightful session, where we'll get to hear from human resource experts, those who have hired more Gen Zs, those who are Gen Zs, and also get to, receive questions from each one of you regarding what your experience is, respective of where you are, whether you're a Gen Z, you're an entrepreneur, you're a HR expert. We'll get to hear from you because we'll give you an opportunity to ask us as many questions as possible. I will be your host for the evening. So my name is Faustina Ninga. I am the lead consultant for medium-sized businesses at Wild International. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm currently not a Gen Z, no, and I don't think I will grow backwards, but it is always an experience working with them. And I'm sure our panelists today are going to share that as we continue with the day's session. And just to kick us off, to get us into the mood of what the conversation is all about, one of the things that was shared in the process of asking you to join into this webinar was a very, quite interesting statistic, which says that by 2030, which is not, far from now, 2030 is like what, 7 years to come, 58% of the workforce will be this generation that we are calling Gen Z. And as such, it's always good to be prepared, right? Irrespective of where you actually sit. So this is our opportunity to understand their uniqueness, okay? Just in terms of, what makes them tick, what gives them the drive to come to work every morning, understanding that right now we are in a period where we talk about hybrid workplaces, but it doesn't work for all industries and all sectors. What inspires them when they're getting into the job market, and how best can we work with them so that we can also succeed in our quest to be successful in our entrepreneurial journey. So the key thing is finding out by the end of this session if you, as a Gen Z, an entrepreneur, a HR, somebody who works with Gen Zs, if you're actually ready for them within the workforce. We also have a Gen Z within our panel. So we need to know, what do they want to see? What keeps them burning as a generation that is now joining the workforce? So to start off, I'll give a chance to our panelists to basically introduce themselves. But I am that personality that likes to give firepower to the panelists by hyping them up, because I know most of them within the panel, and I know how humble they can be when it comes to introducing themselves. So I'll start with myself. Mine will definitely be brief because this is a session to hear from them. So being the lead consultant for medium-sized businesses, I am working at Wild International. What I stand for, or what I do for entrepreneurs, is basically help them achieve 3 things. This is basically help them navigate risks within their entrepreneurial journey, help them to find the resources, be it financial resources, market resources, and lastly, help them create as much networks as possible. So that is a very brief, a very, very short brief about Faustina, but I want you to know more about our panelists today. And I will start off with my own CEO, who happens to be one of the speakers today. His name is Chris Odongo. And Chris Odongo, I have worked with him for at least 1 year plus. And so far, I have enjoyed my journey working with him. Other than being the CEO of Wild International, he's also the co-founder of Sandbox, which is actually where I am seated right now. Chris Odongo is also an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur for that matter, and he believes in developing partnerships to catalyze the success of entrepreneurs across Africa. He's a strategic planning consultant and a business coach with not 1 or 2 years of experience, but 22 years journeying with young people, entrepreneurs, startups, corporates, and basically just being part of the business environment. So he's been doing this across this beautiful continent of ours. Karibu sana, Chris. So I'll give you a chance to pull on over and above what Faustina has said.
I think definitely over and above what Faustina has said, first and foremost, a congratulations to each and every single entrepreneur who has turned up here, because today you have turned up to gain some knowledge that you can be able to apply in your business. So a big congratulations to you. Secondly is to say, I think for me, when it comes to sort of describing myself, I like to feel young at heart, and I like to say that I do have a strong sense of purpose and passion. I'm very passionate about what I do. And right now, the phrase that I've been using to sort of describe myself is, I am the table where you make better decisions. I see myself as the kind of place where you can come as a business owner and you can live with more concrete decisions, with a better strategy that you can then go and apply in your business. And it is my hope that as we get into this conversation today, I shall be able to share with you some insights that you can take back and use to make a better decision. And more importantly, I'm also looking forward to learning from each and every one of you. I think Faustina is going to be encouraging you to type on the chat to share your perspectives. We learn by rubbing shoulders and by rubbing heads with all the people in this room. So I am looking forward. Faustina, thank you so much for having me on this call.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Chris. Yes, it's true. We learn by rubbing shoulders, yeah? And that's a fantastic segue for me to introduce the Gen Z of the moment that will be representing a couple of us. Her name is Wendy Ajulu, who works here at the Sandbox. I think I've interacted with her today, the whole day. So Wendy is actually a PR and communications professional with expertise in account management, digital media, strategy, media relations, and event management. This just tells you that Wendy is a creative. She helps brands tell their stories effectively. She's also she also has a diverse background working with government, nonprofits, and SMEs. So she is not foreign to different sectors, because if you've done those three, you can survive anywhere. So here at Sandbox, she happens to be sorry about that, internet issues, so I'll have to change my device. But what I was actually sharing is the fact that we work here at the Sandbox with Wendy. She is our community officer. At least she keeps things running at the Sandbox. And she supports a lot of our clients and the marketing department as well. So karibu sana, Wendy. You can tell us more about yourself and also say hi to the people listening in.
Thank you so much, Faustina. First of all, that is such an elaborate introduction. As Faustina said, my name is Wendy Ajulu. I am a PR and comms professional. And as I said, I am the Gen Z. I'm the voice of the Gen Zs today. It's very interesting. First of all, this panel is very heavy. I don't know what I'm bringing to the table, but I'd like to think I'm bringing myself because I know I add value to whatever table I sit at, which is something very important. And I'm really looking forward to the conversations we're about to have today, because I think it's important to have these conversations and build cultures that allow the Gen Zs to thrive and to know what it's like to have a seat at the table as well, so that next time you can also ask for that seat. It doesn't have to come to you. You go and ask for it. So thank you so much, Faustina, and looking forward to such an amazing session.
Thank you, Wendy. You already have that seat in this particular session. This is the start of many more to come. My third panelist happens to be a renowned, a bespoke HR expert that I have collaborated with successfully. And she comes with 15 years of experience working with SMEs. She is very pragmatic problem solver. You know, when it comes to people management, I think that is a key thing you require in a human resource support. She focuses on simple solutions to people challenges that are faced by each and every employer. She has top-of-the-range skills in recruitment, onboarding, performance management, and she's an excellent HR trainer. She is passionate about talent management as well. So now you know your people person, you know, your go-to person. And she represents an organization called Fanisi HR Solution that also sits here at the Sandbox. So the HR agency focuses on employment needs of all SMEs and any other small organization. With the experience that Fanisi has, that is for the last 15 years, they've been able to ensure compliance, right placement of talent, growth and development of teams and work organizations. So Madam HR Kevina, karibu sana, and say hi to the people.
Thank you, Faustina. I work with Faustina at Wild. They're a team that I work with in HR for their HR needs. So as Faustina has said, my name is Kevina. I have done this for many years, and I'm surprised how every so often I come across a situation I haven't met before, which tells you people are complex and we'll never get to a point where we say we have fully understood people. But I am very adaptable. 10 years ago in trainings, we talk about millennials, we talk about Generation Y. That was the hype, Generation Y. And now I sit with business owners who are Generation Y themselves as we discuss this new Generation Z. And so we've seen the transition from one generation to the other. I'm from Generation X. And the challenges that have come with the new generations, and still being able to master all this. So just being able to work with new team members who are young, new to the job market is what I do every day. And I am very excited every time to work with them, come up with solutions together, which is what we'll be discussing today. So I'm very excited to be here today. Back to you, Faustina.
Thank you, Kevina. It seems you've worked with multiple generations, and I think that will be the case for the next, let me say, 20, 30 years. I don't know what is your cap on retirement, but I think we'll be having more of these sessions every five years or so, just talking about the different generations. So last, and who is a renowned expert also within the HR profession and representing an organization that we have known for the last, I think since 2006, that is Brighter Monday, is Chris Otundo, a seasoned executive with over a decade of experience in digital talent management and various people disciplines. So he has a wealth of experience in areas such as organizational design, job analysis, job evaluation, competency modeling, competence assessment, talent acquisition, culture assessment, change management, HR analytics. I'm even running out of breath just talking about his experience. I think I should have just posted his CV here. Employer branding, value proposition, HR information system implementation. Chris, this is Chris Otundo, because we seem to have two Chris's today. Chris has also held several leadership positions, including the role of Global Talent Acquisition Lead and Strategic Initiatives in Africa and Canada at the MasterCard Foundation. There, he was responsible for identifying and attracting top talent for strategic programs. Prior to that, he served as the Senior Manager of Talent Acquisition at Safaricom, leading a team of top talent professionals to attract, identify, and onboard talent. So let me just put it this way. Based on his vast experience, Chris is going to represent majority of the corporates that we know about, even aspire to work for. So karibu sana Chris, salimia wananchi.
Thank you so much, Faustine, and sorry to make you work so hard to explain my CV. But truly grateful and honored really to be in this forum this evening. I always feel very humbled to get an opportunity to get the microphone because not everyone gets the chance to speak into people's lives. Certainly, I have been very fortunate to work for a number of organizations, largely large corporates. And so today, sitting here with entrepreneurs, there's certainly a bit of learning that's definitely going to come. I'm now managing a smaller business. I'm managing a business with about 60 employees, and it's been about a year of that experience. But a lot of my experience comes from large multinationals who still have a challenge with Gen Z. But now I have seen the different challenge on the other side. So it's just going to be very interesting to have that conversation and see what experiences I've observed on both sides. So thank you so much, Faustina and the team.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your own experience. I know a lot of people here are wondering, how are you still surviving? How are you still dealing with such kinds of people? We'll get to a point where I'll ask that question in a more reframed manner. So for now, I want, as I had mentioned earlier, is that we want to make this session as engaging as possible. So on the hindsight, we have a team of experts that will be helping us manage the conversations, run a poll, pick out some of the questions that you're going to share on the chat. So I would request that the person in charge, that's Apollo, to please kick us off with our first poll for the day. And as she does that, just know that this poll is just meant to help us understand who's in the room today. Are we talking to employers? Are we talking to the Gen Zs who are currently in the job market or trying to get into the job market? Or are you none of the above? You're someone who works with the Gen Zs, and sometimes it's always good to understand how, best to collaborate with this generation. So please tell us who is with us today. So just 2 minutes for you to share your responses. And a very interesting comment from Chris Odongo is that you may have some aspiring employers, employers and employees in the house, So you can also fall in the category of none of the above, but umekaribishwa sana. Polo, Are we done? I think we can close the poll now. It's a very short, simple poll. Sure, it's just clicking what was on your screen. Just waiting for the responses. Just to see the response. Wow, okay. This is interesting. This is very interesting turnout, that majority of those here are employers and just not the Gen Zs, right? So we are here to understand how best do we work with them. And Wendy, you are not alone. As you can see, we have 15 Gen Zs in the house. So yay, if you don't know what to answer, maybe one of them can even chime in. So thank you. So this is so good for us to know, and we'll try and structure our questions to match, the expectations of the team. So we'll close it there and, start off with our first round of, conversations. And the first conversations is now, something that even I personally do not understand. What is a Gen Z? And in 2 words, Chris Otundo, tell me, what is a Gen Z?
I was hoping you don't ask me that question, because I am a proponent of, and it'll come up in the questions later. But I think there are people who just don't like being labeled, and this is one of those categories of people who don't like being labeled. Why are you placing me in a category? Yeah, but I think it's largely drawn by the age group. I think born from the 2000s onwards. People who were born with a phone in their hands, they're calling them the digital natives, Cocomelon generation. These are all the things that people, all the things that Wendy, they say are called Gen Zs. And there's certain things that describe that Gen Z generation around how they again perceived to behave. So Faustina, I'm going to defer to someone else to do that hard work of describing them. But it's largely about the age bracket, people born from 2000 onwards.
Okay, it's largely about the age brackets. We will refrain from using Cocomelon. Okay. Kevin, tell us, what is a Gen Z? I said 2 words, but Chris had to justify.
Cocomelon.
Okay, the 2 words that come to mind are, one, information. So they have a lot of information. And the second word would be alternatives. They have a lot of alternatives because of the information that they have. So those are the 2 words. And the information is good and also bad. There's too much knowledge. And sometimes not even able to use that knowledge in the right way, or the knowledge then becomes a problem by itself, which might be what is leading to a lot of mental health issues. That is something I'll be talking about later, because it's also a generation that's talking about mental health a lot. So a lot of information and too many options. Yeah, a lot of alternatives and options. Yeah.
A lot of information and too many alternatives. Wendy, is that true? Tell us. What best describes you?
For me, I think what best describes Gen Zs are, first of all, balanced people. They really know how to balance it out. They're quite balanced people. They're quite go-getters. They're quite fierce, and they're also quite aggressive. And it works both ways. Like, if you look at it from both ways, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. But for me, there are people who they don't care. Like, I'm going for what I want. I'm coming for it. Whether you tell me I can't do it, whether you tell me I can't do it, that sounds like your problem. I'm just gonna go get what I want.
So, and Wendy has told us this is the generation that believes in the sky is the limit.
Exactly.
For some of us, in our days, that used to be, for some people, their school motto: either strive to excel or sky is the limit. But now we have a generation who describe themselves as sky is the limit. This is so interesting. Chris, Mr. CEO, tell us, what is your understanding of what a Gen Z is? I'm loving the comments there, and I think that it's the Gen Zs who are cheering on Wendy. The older
wacha ni-
generation, I'm
wacha ni
sorry.
haribu. Wacha ni haribu. Wacha ni haribu sasa. Gen Z ni I think the two words that can describe them: unrealistic expectations.
I am grateful that the Gen Z and Chris are not sitting in the same room. Yeah. Unrealistic expectation. You know what? I think we'll leave it there. You know, we all seem
Leave
to
it.
have an unbalanced way of describing this generation. Hopefully, we will demystify at the end of the day. So I think we'll end that first session there. Now I see the older generation have come in, young and restless. Young and restless. I thought that was a soap opera. Oh my God. Anyway, so I think
Speaking of
I need to
soap
start.
opera, a Gen Z is somebody who does not know what the bold and the beautiful is.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I forgot that I assumed they knew who they were, you know, what bold and beautiful was and not landing was. Anyway, apologies for that. Anyway, you know what? I think I'll just kick it off with a question that was meant to talk on the qualities of Gen Zs, but I'll reframe it in such that based on what you've seen, Chris, what other than, you know, restless, young and the restless, what qualities, and I'm sure there's a lot of positivities that you've seen in the workplace, you being a CEO of an organization and doing what you do for the last 22 years.
I think one of the things that you really want to understand is it's like what Chris Otundo said. You really want to avoid labeling people as Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, and generalizing, because inside all that entire generalization, there is amazing people who are ready to work, ready to engage, looking forward to doing their jobs, looking forward to changing the world, you know, and I think this is something that cuts across all generations. As much as you want to sort of label some peculiarities to a particular generation, you have to understand that human beings are primarily driven by a deep desire to have meaning, you know, and from there, then you are able to actually go into the market and find yourself very, very interesting and exciting kinds of things. That said, you know, when I think about some of the positive things that Gen Zs bring, creativity, innovation, flexibility, options, you know, some of them come with a trust fund, and because they have a trust fund, their reason for coming to work cannot be money. You cannot tell them, I'll pay you 1 million shillings or I'll pay you 100,000 shillings. I mean, they're not interested in money. They have money. You know, some of them even drive better cars than their bosses. So you can't motivate them by telling them our company offers car loans, you know, or mileage allowances. So Gen Zs bring into the workplace very many diverse opportunities. By their very nature, they're curious, they're well informed, and so they will challenge you. They will not just say, okay, this is how things are done here. No, they will ask, why are things done here like that, and what other ways can you do them? They will challenge the status quo, and rightly so. And you cannot just ignore them by saying, sit at the corner, you are an intern. No, there's no sit at the corner, I'm an intern. It is, I am bringing some contribution, I'm bringing some ideas, and yeah, so are you willing to listen? Are you willing to open up your mind to receive them? And so those are very, very positive things that Gen Z comes. And of course, they don't settle for less. They come with a high expectation, which causes you to also rethink whether you're actually also settling for less. So they'll push the boundaries of what's acceptable. They push the boundaries of what's normal. They'll say we can do more. Why is Uganda the only country you want to expand to? I mean, send me to Zanzibar, send me to London, send me to Turkey, send me somewhere. I'll go start a branch there. So they don't settle for excuses.
Mm-hmm. I would summarize what you've said by saying they don't settle for mediocre. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the participants here, Benjamin Mutua, has just said Nazizi described them by singing Nataka kuwa famous. For those who know Nazizi, when she was bigger, it's right now. But wanataka kukuwa famous.
Nazizi ni nani?
They know. I'm sure one or two probably know. If you don't, Google. Google is your friend, right? Maybe even ChatGPT probably might give you her life history. May I call it the ChatGPT generation, by the way. But Wendy, Chris has rightly described his own experience when it comes to the quality scene within the Gen Zs, right? Now, having this kind of qualities, what does ideal versus non-ideal working environment look for you?
I think for me, first of all, the ideal working environment looks healthy. Like, healthy has a spectrum. So you find healthy in terms of, is this somewhere I feel safe to work in, that I don't feel like someone is coming at me, someone is ready to shout at me all the time, because we are that generation that says, Missy Short TV, don't shout at me. Sijazoea. Then an environment that allows me to grow and to grow beyond even like what I'm doing here. So I'll give the example, if I'm at Sandbox as a community manager, but is me being at Sandbox, is that the only thing I'm going to find in my position to do? Like, is there a room that allows me here in this work environment to grow beyond what I'm doing here? That maybe if I leave, I left with something. I just didn't come here for maybe 2 years. I used to come every day, do this, like it was a routine, because also routine is something that also we like disrupting the routine, hoping something new comes out of it. And I like that she said that settling does not exist in our vocabulary, because the moment you settle, hautakuwa famous, that's also the other thing. And it could be famous in terms of your career, famous in terms of whatever famous looks like for you. So settling is something that does not exist. So you find we are always challenging, even in the workplace. Is it possible for me to push the door that is written, like, Paul, can I push it a bit further? Can I ask for, I'm not waiting to be given that seat at the table. Is it that environment safe enough for me to say, okay, fine, I also want to state, and I also want to be part of whatever you're doing. I want that, we call it equality, but it's not equality. I just want to be given airtime, hoping if you give me that airtime, I'll double your airtime, or I'll make your airtime worthwhile. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. One of the participants has said, Kama work environment I give, you guys are out.
It's not giving what it's supposed to give. It's not giving, I'm out. That's also maybe just another challenge. The fact that quitting is always, or being out is always like the first response. Maybe that's also something that I look at as something that's maybe something that needs to be worked on. That yes, you don't have the option of quitting, because when you say it's not giving and you walk out, then what next? Because there's no planning and structuring of how do you see yourself. Okay, fine. After I have left, what's next? How am I doing? How am I doing this? Like, okay, I've left this place. What am I doing next? Is it something I can work on? If it's not giving, how can I make it work? Like, how can I make it give so that I can stay a bit longer? That's how I look at it.
Interesting. Actually, I want to invite Kevina into this conversation. Sometimes the work environment sometimes may not give as per your expectations. I love the fact that Wendy has actually worked with government, and that is a whole different environment. If you have parents who are civil servants, in fact, they don't even understand the concept of quitting. But the new work environment has changed, and there are certain, areas or things that just cannot be changed simply to accommodate you as a generation. So what would an ideal workplace look like for a Gen Z, Kevina?
Great. I work with Gen Z, and I actually even reached out and asked what's an ideal workplace. And I've also seen and experienced this. And top of the responses that I got was flexibility. Top. I asked many people, and they all, in their answers, had flexibility. And this flexibility was linked to work-life balance. That I have a life, I know I have a job, but I also have a life, and I need a balance. And I even remembered that a few months ago when we were hiring someone, and when the conversation went very well. And when we talked about the working days, the Saturday was a working day, and that she was ready to not take this job because she said Saturday is for my friends and my family. And she was very categorical. Saturday is for my friends and my family. And the person we were hiring with was very livid. She was very unhappy. How can you say Saturdays for your friends and your family? But this is a reality for Gen Z. It's work-life balance. I work for you. I'm not your slave. So you pay me for X number of hours. Then the rest of the time, I have a life to live. So flexibility would be top of the list. But the rest would be then a creative work environment, a place where they're learning. Someone left their job, I think 3 months ago. I was doing an exit interview, and they told me I stopped learning a long time ago. And the minute they stopped learning, then they started planning their exit, because you want to keep learning. Then someone I was talking to today said that we employ young people who come from an education system that didn't teach them the practical part of the job. Then you expect them to hit the ground running. So for our Gen Z, so a place where they come with the theory, and you help them to quickly, where you have learning and development programs, or at least a system where they learn the practical bit of the work. And we don't start to evaluate them and give them negative evaluations because, we keep complaining they don't know how to do their job. But every business owner and every business must have an induction and onboarding system that recognizes the fact that the education system won't give you someone who is already quote unquote cooked, and it is what it is. So then have a system where we train them to fit into the work environment, train them to do their job, so that then we are not complaining all the time, because that's what we do. We really complain about Gen Z, we really complain about their competence, but it's not fair for them because really the education system didn't, I think way back then, people would go to school, come out of school and immediately get the work done. But now there's just so many dynamics, the cheese move, and also jobs are changing so much. I imagine in 13 years ago is when we all started getting phones. No, actually it's 23 years ago. It's the year 2000 is when we all got our first phones. So 23 years later, if someone who went into a coma 23 years ago who woke up, and if they woke up today, it would be a completely different ballgame, which means then every day we are changing, jobs are changing. So we need to be very adaptable. And Gen Z, the generation that was born during that whole period of time, they don't even know what it is to not have a phone. Yeah. So the biggest challenge that I have in most places where flexi hours have not been allowed, that's the biggest challenge that I have to even sit in and moderate and see what to do about flexible hours. And there are many reasons why we don't allow flexible hours in some workplaces, but it's a one argument that will not end. It's a one argument that will not end. Which takes me to the next point, which is technology, because the reason we don't allow for working from home is technology. Yeah. So if adapted to technology and we are able to measure work we know that I gave you this piece of work, it will take you 6 hours to do it, and this is what it will look like when it's complete, then I'll worry less about you working from anywhere. In fact, it's not just working from home, it's working from wherever, which is the one thing that I also got as the thing that Gen Z would like at the workplace. Yeah, so there's so many things I could say, but I'll hand over back to you for now.
Thank you for that. You being a HR consultant, I'm sure you can even give me a whole thesis about what you can do to ensure you keep the work environment slightly, let me say slightly conducive, because, well, most of these solutions will cost businesses money. But I want to go to Chris Otuno, you being in the industry for those many years and representing quite a number of large organizations. I'm sure you have had a lot of experience working with different sets of generations. So out of curiosity, maybe you can share with us what innovative recruitment and onboarding practices can organizations look out for so that they can capture the attention of Gen Z candidates, understanding that not every organization can afford some of these things, but what else can we bring on board so that at least we attract and retain?
Absolutely. So I think for starters, allow me to just comment on how the angle Chris Odongo took in describing the Gen Z and the challenge they have. I mean, you must indeed look at the environment in which they have grown up. This is a generation that has grown up with a lot of information, and therefore they will challenge status quo, because whatever you present to them, they can quickly counter check and confirm that what you're saying is not absolutely true. This is a generation that is significantly cushioned because, to Chris Odongo's point, there's a trust fund or there's a parent who's not as quick to kick you out of the house. And so you kind of have a fallback plan, and that does something to psychology. They're growing up in an era where a lot of social injustices, the lid on those have been blown, and a lot of things are being corrected, and we're now more aware of rights. And then there's the last one, which is really around, to Kevina's point, the rapid change. And so they're growing up in an environment where there's just so much going on, and one needs to really be resilient. I mean, no human really can take on all those options, all that information at a go. And so indeed, the mental capabilities are being challenged. And this is not necessarily just the Gen Z, but anyone who's having to deal with the rapid change is being challenged as a human. So I guess, again, because of those challenges, then they're having to quickly adapt and be resilient and figure out a way forward, and which is why you probably are seeing a proliferation of all these entrepreneurs coming from this demographic, because they're having to look for options, which was not a requirement of their parents. So to your question around trends, I'll just give you a very simple example of what frustrates the Gen Z. You go into a platform and you say, attach CV, and then you tell them, fill this form, asking them the exact same questions which you asked, which are all on the CV. The older generation did it and took it very lightly, and they said, you know what, I need the job. But the Gen Z are again, in the spirit of efficiency and the fact that they understand what technology can do, they don't understand why you make them fill that form. So certainly an advice for a small enterprise like the ones on, and the businesses that are on the call, leverage an application tracking system. Leverage an organization that can easily allow you to quickly either have the CVs attached, and they'll just something called parsing, which they basically take all the critical information from the CV and fill the form on your behalf, or make them fill the form, but on the other side, the entrepreneur is then able to quickly sift and filter through the CVs. So when an employer, when a Gen Z looks at a company that asks them, send your CV, immediately there's an attraction level that is lost, because why don't you have a system? Yeah, and again, Chris Odongo would allow me to do product placement. Brighter Monday can help you with that. For as little as 5,000 bob, a small business can leverage our platform to quickly shortlist 1,000 people down to 10 people. And they embed assessments and make it really easy. So a lot of companies are leveraging application tracking systems as a baseline to kind of improving their recruitment processes. It's not all about technology. Obviously, working for Safaricom and some of these big players, I've seen us leveraging technology in the space of gamification. So for developers on the call, what we would do is the recruiter would sit on the other side of the webinar, of the computer, and we would open an IDE, a page where, let's say, the code sits, and the software developer can code at the same time as the panelist or the recruiter, and we can talk about the work that you're doing as you're doing it. So it's collaborative interviewing. Yeah, it's a very different kind of approach. It's not where there's a boss and asking questions, but we're collaborating, and I'm asking questions as we go along. That's something I've done in Kenya. It's not even something that's out there, but small companies might not be able to afford that, but that is indeed what is being done out there. I was going to talk to you about, aside from technology, the space of diversity. Wendy spoke about some of the traits that Gen Zs embrace and exude. And so if you're an employer who does not appreciate that people are going to be diverse, people are going to be different from perhaps the straight jacket kind of person that you're used to, then you'll miss out on a lot of talent, because they don't come in the same shape and form. Some of them will come with red hair. Some of them will come with some piercings all over the body, but doesn't mean that they don't have the skill set that you're looking for. So the focus of the future of work is around skills and outcomes. And so my encouragement to employers today is the trend is that we're now more focused on outcomes and the skills. What do you bring to the table? As opposed to focusing on appearance and all these things, you might end up missing out on some of these important things. So an environment that embraces that as you're applying, as you're attracting talent, that will begin to allow you to attract good talent. I'll stop there.
Thank you for that comment. And an interesting thing that you've mentioned is the fact that Gen Zs have gone beyond mundane processes of applying for jobs. In fact, gone are the days when you're looking for a job at KRA, you had to write your CV with your handwriting, PO box. So those skills we used to learn in school about where do you put your address, where do you put the recipient's address, were really being used then. Now, I don't think we use those things anymore. And you've given us a great opportunity to actually speak to an employer, Chris Odongo. Your fellow Chris has talked about critical things that you might need to consider as an employer, including diversity. And I'll ask you two questions. The first one is a yes or no question. Would you be comfortable if I came with green hair to the office and go run a strategy session?
Faustina, why do I think you're planning to do that tomorrow? Yes, it's possible. I think the question really has to do with the context. And if you look at the chat, there's some chat going on between myself and Clara. And I'll tell you this, you can turn up with any color of hair into my kitchen, provided it is covered. Because in a kitchen, you can't have loose hair, So you and your green hair, you're welcome into my kitchen, but you have to cover it. And so when it comes to strategic planning, which is our bread and butter, I have to ask you, who are we presenting the strategic plan to? If our clients are bankers tomorrow and we turn up with green hair, first, they won't even concentrate on whatever it is we are saying. They'll just be focused on the green hair instead of thinking about what their customers are. And I'll tell you, there's one time we went with our suits to do a strategic plan for a creative art organization, and these are artists. They were wearing dreadlocks, looking colorful. We were given t-shirts and jeans and told, come tomorrow wearing this kind of clothes, because your suits and your ties are killing us. And so for me, I always say, dress for the job, dress for the job, and dress for the outcome that you want. So that would be my answer. You can't go to a factory with loose clothes that has moving machine parts.
So in essence, what you say is no.
No. I didn't say no. I said dress for the job.
But Chris, now this is the second part of the questions. At the end of the day, you are after what I'm here to offer, not necessarily my physique, what I enjoy working with. So what strategies would you encourage entrepreneurs to put in place so that it is accommodative of our different, because this is now what my generation likes to say, different cultures, different backgrounds. So what can I put in place to accommodate all this?
As an entrepreneur, the first thing you have to be clear about is, what's your goal? What's your goal? Where are you? What are you trying to achieve? And I mean, of course, borrowing that from understanding very clearly what your business model is. What business am I in? Because if you know the business that you are in, then you will be very clear what your goal is. Then from those goals, you know what the factors of success are. If you're running a restaurant, then you know what the factors of success are. You have to have good food, and it also depends on what kind of food you're serving. Is it African cuisine, or is it continental cuisine, or is it Asian, or is it British? I hear British also have some cuisines. You know, so what foods are you? What food are you offering, and what's the factor of success for you? Where are you located? What are your opening times? What are your closing times? What is the peak? What is success for your business? Because from that, then now you can describe the kind of jobs you want and the kind of people you want to occupy those jobs. And you can then recruit those people, give them very clear job descriptions of this is what I need you to do, give them the skills and the talents and the tools they need to be effective. There's no need of asking me to make Chinese food if you don't give me a workstation. You know, there's no need of asking me to make pancakes if you don't give me a pancake station. You know, that is making my work more difficult. So give them the right tools, give them the right targets. Are we in Kasarani selling chapatis for 50 bob, and therefore I need to sell 100 or 200 chapatis a day? You know, and therefore then how do I need to be dressed? You know, if I'm going to make 200 chapatis per day, there's a way I need to be dressed, and there's a way I need to be. So you want people to come. And also at the end of the day, customers are expecting something when they come to your premises. And we are here to serve customers. Our business is here to serve customers. So if customers expect you to be in a certain way because of the business model, then that's exactly how we're going to have you dressed. And that's exactly how we're going to. And I'll tell you this, I had a business owner who, and even not even just then, even now, why do you give your employees uniforms? You know, you don't want them to think about what to wear. You want them to represent your brand and to represent it well. So you give them uniforms, you know, and they wear it and they stand out and the customers are happy and the business is flowing. And all that is based on a business model. So I say the objective and the goal of the organization dictates what it is. And then after job descriptions, targets, clear KPIs. Once you have those in place, you hold people to those standards. And of course, getting the right people there.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. In summary, you basically just told us the business model dictates how you're going to dress, how you're going to behave. Sometimes it's not by choice, it is just by circumstance. If you work in a bank, you have to look and act in a certain way. If you work in a law firm, there are expectations from you. And those are just, you know, mere facts about the job environment. So I want to say thank you to the panelists for such an engaging first session. I think, in fact, the conversations on the chat were so interesting. Being able to reframe my mind back to, you know, what is it you're trying to accomplish, and reading through the comments was quite difficult for me, but they were really, really good conversations going on. Very funny. Some were so active. I can see one like Susan Balu, Chandi in the comments section. One is even wondering, green hair and what if I am bald? So thank you so much. Keep the conversations going on. Trust me, you're helping a lot of people. Remember, majority of those in the audience tend to be employers, and they're sharing their experience working with the Gen Zs going forward. So we're going to end our first session there. And the first session just focused on how do we attract, how do we position ourselves to work with the Gen Zs. So as a segue to get into our second session, which we'll try to keep as short as possible to give the panelists enough time to share the closing remarks, we're going to kick it off with a poll. So I will ask our very able team from Wild to put the poll on the screen. And the question that we're asking is, as a business owner, what has been your biggest challenge managing Gen Z employees? And I will also give employers, employees also who, play sort of a role of selecting the team that works under them to proceed also to share their own challenges managing Gen Z employees. The choices are, is it poor work ethic? Is it unrealistic salary expectations? Everybody wants to earn like a member of parliament in Kenya, but how many really want to put in the work? You want to work hybrid. What is your fidelity like to honoring your employer's time? Demanding shorter working hours, is that really realistic? Lack of loyalty, and all the above. So very quickly, 2 minutes, give you a chance to share your own experience. One minute to go, 1 minute to go. Unfortunately, myself as the host and the panelist, we are not allowed to vote. I don't know if you're allowed to share what we think or what I think. I'm sure Kevina and Chris Otundo would like to share their own thoughts on that particular question. Okay, so
you need to add to this list. These are not enough.
if what you feel is not on this particular list, please share it on the chat. Okay, so I will ask the team in the background to close the poll now. Let's see what people are saying. Okay, all right. 40% are saying all the above. That is interesting. So the biggest challenge as business owners when it comes to working with Gen Z is poor work ethic. That is 32%. It's actually not a small number compared to how the statistics are running. The other one is lack of loyalty, and yes, lack of loyalty. Please, I'll ask the guys in the background, just we leave the poll there. And this is going to be the lead up to our round 2 of questions. Wendy, is this true?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think maybe now this poses back to the question of, as a Gen Z, what is my biggest challenge in with the employer? And so I want to say unrealistic salary expectations is maybe one of the biggest, because you find you're really going above and beyond. Because again, I want to say that Gen Zs are also overachievers. Like, they're really people who want to go above and beyond. Like they don't stop at nothing because they're overachievers. But now you see, when you meet an overachiever, but you want to meet them halfway in terms of just compensating them for their time, because the salary is actually a compensation of your time and what you're doing here, but you find they're not willing to meet you. That it becomes a very big challenge. Or someone tells you, okay, fine, I'm going to pay you this, but if I pay you this, it cuts you somewhere. It's not genuine, and it doesn't come from a point of I'm listening to you or I'm hearing you. It's more of, it's either you take it or you don't take it, which sometimes can be very unfair, because maybe you really want this job and it's making sense. And we also don't want to be the people we're not the group for I'm paying with you're being paid with exposure. Exposure doesn't pay the bills. So you forgo and you say that I won't take it. Like, I'd rather not take it because I also don't feel like I'm being valued here at the end of the day.
Okay. Interesting. It's a take it or leave it situation. But Chris Otundo, let me just ask you, as an employer, you're also limited. This particular job group has this bracket when it comes to salaries, but how else are you able to mitigate this so that you retain the good talent, which we have described as flexible and creative, and then also foster a relationship with them, whether you're a manager as a CEO? What word of advice would you give in such situations?
Yeah. So coming in, I've had to frame my mind. Like I said earlier, my conditioning has largely been from large corporates. But one of the things I've quickly appreciated is that on the other side, with SMEs, with entrepreneurs, you have limited resources. But doesn't mean because you have limited resources, you still cannot engage this demographic of talent. One of the things is, again, based on the conversation we've had, they will always be unsettled. They will be restless because they just grown up in an era where there's many opportunities, many options. And so the workplace is going to have to change. The 8 to 5 workplace is just not going to sustain very long. You will engage this staff for different projects, different bite-sized projects. And so even as you frame, and this is just me sharing with you openly, today, yes, you're running an 8 to 5 organization, or 8 to 8, depending on how much you work, but that's going to shift. Just to share with you some practical things around, let's say, performance management at the workplace. Performance management has largely been left to a once in a month, once in 3 months engagement. This generation wants you to talk to them all the time. Give them feedback on the spot. Make it continuous. This is something I've seen applied at a large organization, but can also work in this generation that is demanding that you engage with them regularly, that you give them the feedback, that you grow them. The other thing I've seen is, obviously, everyone says that this demographic is particularly driven by purpose and values. And so your organization, while small, can leverage an opportunity to take them out to do meaningful things. So first of all, make it clear to them why you do the thing you do. But more importantly, find opportunities within the team to participate in some CSR activity, find things together that will allow them to feel a sense of belonging in that organization. Learning and development, which is probably one of Kevina's fortes. Learning today is not going to be that you put them in a class and you take them through a 1-hour lesson. It's bite size. It's 10 minutes, it's 3 minutes. It's collaborative. These guys are used to being on Facebook and engaging. So if you're taking them through a learning process that is only one-sided, they will not last. It's continuous. So it doesn't stop. It's gamified. So the challenge for you as the entrepreneur is to find creative ways of this whole talent agenda, making it a little bit more custom for this demographic. That way they will stay. You might not be able to pay them, but if you offer them these other things, meaningful work, they will stay. Offer them an opportunity to learn consistently. That might keep them there. I know that Wendy said learning is not going to pay the bills, but people are motivated by different things. And if you're not taking care of the money, but you're also not taking care of their learning, you're not taking care of their opportunity to engage in meaningful projects, then for sure they'll leave. So it's really around, in the time that they're with you, even if it's 6 months, what can you extract from them? What can you offer them in the form of a project, in the form of an outcome that you will gain from? And let them go, because that's going to be the nature of the workplace. You will never have permanent staff. It's always going to be this. You're going to be offering people a project work. So that's the new world in which we're going to be living in. Yeah.
Wow, thank you for that, Chris. You've actually shared a lot of ways in which an employer or even a business owner or a colleague can apply, so that at least we give that word meaningful work. I always have an issue with meaningful work and the life of purpose. You know, people get to a point and they're like, that life of purpose, no, I don't think this is what I want to do. But it's all about the money. But Kevina, back to you, having listened to what Chris Otundo has mentioned, this is something
We lost you for a second there.
as far as my knowledge is concerned. What more do you want, or what practices do you want me to add onto my organization? Because I'm actually feeling for the employer.
Okay, Faustina, we lost you for like a minute. Could you repeat the question? And you got part of it.
Sorry about that. So my question is, what else can I employ into my business, knowing that I have tried to do as much as possible to accommodate this generation and give them the meaningful work environment, as Chris Otundo has mentioned? What else do I need to put in place?
Okay, thank you about that. And I'll add to what Chris said, Chris Otundo, and then even earlier Chris. Earlier I was talking about, and I'd worn the Gen Z's shoe. Now I would like to wear the shoe of the business owner and say, we have limited resources. We come, you know, my business grows and I need to employ people. I need very good skill, but I don't have the money to pay for it. And then this becomes a struggle that business owners meet every day. And it's a really serious challenge, because I would like to have doubles. I like to have 2 people per role, so that if one person drops off, I have someone else, but the budget doesn't allow for that. So what then do I do as a business owner to at least survive the business? One is to be realistic about the tenure that you are getting. Getting more than 3 years is a dream from any employee. And as Chris said, they'll even be there for 6 months. So then how do I prepare for that eventuality that someone could leave? And one of the things we could do is leverage on processes. So if you have your SOPs, if you have your documentation very clear, so that when you get someone new join the team, they're able to get running much faster than if there were no written policies and procedures. That's one of the ways that you can at least mitigate this problem, because you don't have the money to employ too many people. That's one, and also get more people on the team to learn more of the skills. So you don't have skills domiciled in just one person. So if it's skills that can be learned across board, get as many people who to learn the skills. If it's parts of the businesses that you can outsource, then outsource. If it's accounting is very easy to outsource bits of the businesses that can be outsourced. And one other thing you can do now with the team that you have is communicate. And anytime we run a poll about communication, we always fall short of communication everywhere I go. So if you can be very intentional about communicate about the business. You can tell that the salaries will be late. By 20th, 25th, you know. So let the people know, let the team know we will be running late on their salaries. Don't announce this on the 5th when they're already complaining. I mean, that just makes people really angry. And you'll find that they'll work with you. And if you can even go further and explain why we even have that situation, if you can have a cash flow discussion, you'll find that they even have ideas on how we can mitigate a situation like that. So, and that calls for vulnerability. You need to be vulnerable as a business owner and communicate the real situation. So you're being authentic about the situation and being vulnerable and transparent about what you're going on what is going on in the business and what challenges that you're facing as a business owner. So those are some of the things that you can do that don't require money and that would help retain the team longer, in addition to all the learning, all the new skills that they need to gain, and just being intentional about the learning and teaching. And it doesn't need to cost you a lot. You don't need to go out there. A lot of the skills are domiciled among the team members. So intentionally putting together times when we learn, and learning doesn't need to be a time, we say we learn on Saturday, and that's a day that they don't even want to learn. So if you're intentional about learning and you really are serious about it, could we have then a day like Thursday or whatever, that is a work day, that we say 2 hours, we will learn every Thursday for an hour or 2 hours, or every 2 weeks. Then you're able to retain people more.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Kevina. But as an employer, this might sound like an added job description to what I do, because we're talking about being vulnerable as a business, having to communicate much more than you used to, sometimes being intentional and sharing information that most business owners are not comfortable doing. But to you, Wendy, as the representative today of the Gen Z community in Africa, is this the type of relationship that you're looking for with your manager or your CEO?
I think for me, it's more of a relationship that allows us to communicate openly, because now that I am part of your team, it means I am also feeding into your end goal of your vision of what you see. Like, I'm part of your team now, so I'll give the example. I'm part of your team now, and now I have been around and I've seen that this is the vision you have. You have the idea of expansions into 10 countries. So we share that vision. Ideally, that is how I look at it. We're sharing this vision of, fine, how am I feeding into your plan for us to grow into 10 years? It means there needs to be some form of open communication. Vulnerable is a very ambiguous word. It's a very dangerous word to use, because people will interpret vulnerability however they want to. So it's more about opening the lines of communication that allow the employer, or if not even the employer, the team that he or she has put together, to communicate with their staff and say, okay, fine, this is where we are, and this is what we need to do to make sure that we achieve this dream, or we achieve these targets. Because you see, also, I think there's something Chris said, that having specific job descriptions, because what if I'm coming every day, I'm just hanging out? What am I doing? I'm just here to chill, vibes and inshallah, hoping that alafu end month ikifika 25th week, I'm waiting for my salary. Again, another 25, 28 days, vibes and inshallah, I'm paid a salary. So what am I really doing? Am I really feeding into the vision that you have for your enterprise? Am I feeding into the vision of where you see yourself? And even when we said opportunities for growth, am I also getting something out of this? Am I getting an opportunity to, handle small projects, an avenue for me to grow as a person in my career, an avenue for me to also develop my leadership skills? Because one day I'll also be in that position to also be like an employer or something. And there's something someone said in the chat here about, like, a bit of toxic work environments, especially in big corporates. So you find someone is really looking down on you, and you find it very difficult. How am I even going to be, quote unquote, like we said, vulnerable with you if this is how you're treating me? I can't bring myself to have that conversation with you, because it's giving a lot of work and a lot of hectic things that I just can't do. And I'm just going to be so sad there. And then I'm going to start saying that the environment is not giving. And when you ask me why it's not giving, I also can't say at all because Chris is really bullying me, or Chris is really talking to me the way he wants. Because again, Chris is my employer. You get what I mean? So
Yes.
find balance, and also opening the lines of communication that allow your team and even your Gen Z employer, because they, like, I don't know, I think it's Chris Otundo who said, it's like instant gratification. Instant gratification is very important because it really motivates you to work a bit harder, to even improve on your skills, to come to work every day and say, oh my God, I love this job. But you see, if you're waiting to do these things at the end of the quarter, or if anything, again, I'll feel like I have to, again, put together things I did like 3 months ago so that I can be congratulated today. Absolutely not. So opening the lines of communication that allow you and your team to just talk and also just have conversations, and being an approachable person. Because, and I'm going to reference a video I saw on the internet, on TikTok, where someone explained that if you are a younger employee and your senior walks into the room, you need to stand and you need to, like, present yourself as this person who, oh my God, this man is, like, or this woman is so, like, high up there. I need to stand and respect, because what is that? You get what I mean? Yes, it's a sign of respect, but it's also a sign of fear. Like, if I don't stand, there's also something here. So how do we make sure that that relationship, first of all, is healthy? It's not toxic, it's open, that we also, boundaries are also very clear, that yes, we are opening the lines of communication, but up to this extent. Ikifika, the line is very clear in the sense that you can't cross and jump into beyond the line. So it's opening the lines of communication and understanding that yes, the lines are open and we can always talk, but there's a boundary here that you can't pass this.
Okay, that is
Christina,
that's a very
if I may.
Okay, please proceed, Chris.
Just Wendy said something that kind of triggered something I'd read earlier. There's this new terminologies in diversity that talk about microaggressions. So it's a terminology entrepreneurs and small business owners need to be aware of. It's those small things we say, even on the call here, where we make some snide comments about the Gen Z, and we take them in jest, but they actually get eat at their self-esteem. It reminds them that they're young. It reminds them that they're not as experienced. So there's also an element of educating ourselves and really joining such forums and really spending time to really understand what it is that this generation is concerned about, because then you'll just be doing it because that's just how it's always been done. We've always made fun of the juniors, but this generation, unfortunately, is not. They don't take jokes as lightly, perhaps, especially when you're coming at their seniority or their capabilities. So they take at least my observation, Wendy, forgive me for generalizing, they don't take criticisms very well. And so those small snide comments, they call them microaggressions, they don't go well with them. And so it's really there's an opportunity for us to educate as business owners to really educate yourself about that generation in some level of detail, so that it's almost like if you did have a person with disability in your office, there's certain behavior as well you need to adapt. If you're operating around a woman, how do you operate if you're operating around an older man? So it's just learning each other so that you can behave appropriately.
Again, I think the more Chris Otundo and Kevin speak, the more I'm feeling for entrepreneurs in terms of, it seems to be like a whole other added job description. But Chris, the other Chris, yeah, what are the irreducible minimums? Because if I even go by your comments on the chat, and there's a gentleman called Chandi's also saying very interesting things, and it's just referring to sometimes if you feel you can't take the heat, tembea ukikanyaga kubwa kubwa. Yeah. What are an entrepreneur's irreducible minimums?
I think I want to go back to my first comment, and this is something that we often forget, that first and foremost, before you're even labeled as a Gen Z, you're a human being, you know, and human beings have very, very similar requirements across the board. We want to feel valued, we want to feel appreciated, we want to be challenged with work that can grow our minds, because God blessed us with a mind, regardless of whichever level somebody is. If you go to, and sometimes you need to be able to go to certain places, then you really appreciate. If you go to certain places where you expect those people to be of a lower class, and I'm speaking very, very careful here with deep humility. If you expect that, oh, these people are of a lower class, they cannot appreciate green buildings, or they cannot appreciate beauty, you are completely mistaken, because they are there not because they choose to be there. They are there because life has not presented them with a different option. And sometimes they have not come across knowledge that can challenge their status quo and give them an, but if they're given an option, you'll find them enjoying beauty and nature just as much as your billionaire will enjoy a green, beautiful space. So they know, in fact, it says beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. People know how to discern what's beautiful, what's good, what's perfect. And at the end of the day, that's saying at the core, we are human beings. And so if you're an employer, at the core, you're dealing with human beings and treating them decently, whether they are doing kazi ya mjengo or whether they are in your C-suite, you know, or whether you run a hardware store or you run a kitchen or you run a consultancy. Treating somebody with decency is something that is unalienable. From Gen Z to Gen X to baby boomer, you know, and those are the irreducible minimums. You know, giving somebody a challenging work environment, or trusting them, or building their skill, and coming to a place where you tell them, okay, we've trained you, now you should be able to do this on your own. You know, we can't micromanage you all the time just because you're a bricklayer. At some point, you need to know how to lay the bricks, and we need to trust that you will lay the bricks. And now, it's not to say that we are going to trust employees, you know, just hobela, because that leads to theft of time, theft of resources. You know, you can't just say we trust you, so therefore you can run the construction site. We are not going to put a watchman so that people don't. No, that's careless. You have to also be a steward of the resources, and you have to have systems that will keep honest people honest. No, not tempt them beyond what they are capable of its side. So I think the irreducible minimum is to realize that at the end of the day, people want to be challenged, people want to be trusted, people want to be celebrated. They want to be told, iyo githeri umepika leo, hey, imekubali. You know, they want to be told, iyo chapati is on point. And they want to even be shown. Sometimes they just don't know how to make the chapati. You know, you can't just come and shout, these chapatis are hard as a rock. You never showed them how to make the chapatis. If your business is about making chapatis, you need to show them how it's done, because you are the entrepreneur, you are the owner of the business. Once you show them this is how it's done, then you let them practice. Once they have done it well, then you celebrate them. Because at the end of the day, the basics, irreducible minimum. We are human beings, we want to be challenged, we want to be recognized, we want to be appreciated, but we also want to be shown how to do it and how to succeed.
Wow, fantastic. Ultimately, every business owner wants to succeed anyway. So yes. I am not going to bend over backwards just to accommodate certain things. It has to be mutually beneficial. Thank you so much for that, Chris. And it is a good final comment from the panelists with regards to the list of questions that we had. During the process, we were taking advantage of the chat conversations, and we were trying to, you know, make them be part of these conversations because they were really very, very interesting. Some of you were sharing their experiences, and as such, I feel like I don't have any more questions to ask the panelists from the audience. You have been a fantastic co-host for me today, so you've made my life a little bit easier. And from what I have learned, there's just so much I've learned. And I think one of the things that I'll take away with me is vibes and inshallah. I have never had that before. Whatever that means. But I was taking notes, and it's been such an interesting conversation because I have 3 field foolscaps here today. So what we will do as Wild is a question. The question that I'm seeing in the Q&A, the Q&A box is about whether this recording will be shared. I assume this is going to be shared with you. And if there's anything that you would like to know from us, please feel free to ask us a question. Feel free to share your feedback. In fact, I'll ask Robert to just share the QR code for Wild so that guys can give us their comments, check us out on our website, what Wild is all about, and anything else that you'd like to ask us. We're always here to help you. But as you can see, courtesy of Sandbox, we are not short of expertise. We have Brighter Monday with vast years of experience. For those who don't know what Brighter Monday is, some of us, when we started looking for jobs, tukachoka kuandika barua to KRA and every government office, Brighter Monday was, the gift that just kept on giving. You started seeing more and more jobs, and they've done this since 2006. So if you don't know them, please check out the Brighter Monday website as well. They work with more than 35,000 employers. So you and your next job can just be, clicking the Brighter Monday website, and also Kebina through Fanisi HR. If you go to their LinkedIn page, you'll see a lot of jobs that she constantly posts over there. So as you can see on your screen, you have the QR code. This leads you directly to the Wild website. Give us your comments, share your reviews about us. We really, really appreciate it. This is just one of many more series of webinars that Wild and Sandbox has been hosting. So to end today's session, in the interest of time, I've already hit the top of the hour, which was meant to be 8:30. I'll just ask my panelists to give me their final comments their final comments or their clarion call when it comes to working with Gen Z. So I will start with Chris Otuno. Please just give us your clarion call, and very briefly, maybe you can just add one more thing about Brighter Monday that you would like the audience to know.
I was talking to myself the whole time.
Sorry about that.
I hope you can hear me. Yeah, so I was just saying about Brighter Monday, certainly I'll start with there. Brighter Monday has been in the market for long, like you said, Faustina. We leverage technology to make your recruitment much easier. And so all the way from executive roles, we will do end-to-end support, all the way to your mid-level to junior roles. We can support you with those. So please reach out to me through Wild. We'll be happy to help you as a small business find your talent. I guess my parting shot is leverage technology. Certainly that will allow you to access the Gen Z, leverage your websites to communicate the life in your organization. That's something that small businesses don't do very well. How do you communicate why working for your organization will be better than working for another organization? So employer branding, something we don't do, but it's so easy to do and will not cost you much. And lastly, be open and authentic as you would with any human being. Like Chris said, it's not really about Gen Z, it's just be open and authentic, and that really does serve to make the Gen Z that you're working with stay on longer. Be open about what's going on, and all the best. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Kevina?
Okay, so I think the first thing you need to do is maybe look at yourself first, because you need to be a good human being first before you work with other human beings. So looking at yourself, allowing for your team to call you out, allowing for your team to give you feedback, because that's one of the most difficult things that employees go through. They talk to us and tell us all these things, but when they go to their supervisors and their employers, they don't say it, and sometimes even tell us don't tell them. So being in a space where you allow for people to speak to you and tell you things as they see, because then that's their experience, that's the employee's experience. A lot of communication. I'm very big on communication. Communicate, even over-communicate, because then that's how we're able to resolve a lot of problems. That's how you're able to solve problems. Then include the employees in the problem solving. So don't kill yourself trying to solve problems. Involve your team members, involve them in solving problems, and involve them in the vision as you vision cast and you move forward together. And finally is to adapt and move with the times. Things are changing, the cheese moved and it will keep moving. So change and adapt as things keep changing. Because if you're stuck in the past, when I keep hearing, oh, this is how we used to do it, that language just needs to go. Yeah. And so involve the team as things move and as things change, adapt with the times realistically. Yeah. And in the communication, I'll just maybe say something that maybe we didn't say earlier. As you communicate with the team, they're able to tell and they're able to know what is not possible. And that example you were giving about the workplaces that can't do flexi hours at all. You're a salon. You have to come to the workplace. And they're not unrealistic. They know that that's not possible. So that will not something that will ask for. If they're asking for it, it is possible. Okay. All right. Back to you, Faustina.
Thank you so much. It is interesting to see that the HR professionals are leaning towards the humanness in terms of communication, understanding self, understanding the business, and how we interact with one another. But to you, Wendy, what is your word of advice, especially to the employers in the house and the business owners in the house?
Oh my God. I think for me, first of all, I'll start with the Gen Zs. Be a person who is willing to learn. Be a person who is willing to take correction, especially in the job. It goes a long way. Be a person who is willing to be accommodated, who is willing to understand that this is where things are. It gets better. It gets better. I can proudly say it gets better, only because I'm not where I was maybe 2 years ago, but be a person who is willing to learn, be a person who is willing to take correction, because we all don't know what we are doing. We are just trying, we are hanging out and figuring it out as we go, and we are collecting, gems as we go. So be a person who is willing to learn, be a person who is willing to take correction, but most of all, stick to your values, because let me tell you something, if you don't stick to your values, the job will be you and you will be the job. So you find that now there's no way you can separate the two. So also practice the work-life balance. It doesn't exist, but you can try and say that, hey, maybe ikifika Saturday, please, boundaries. But also be someone who's willing to learn, be someone who is willing to put yourself out there again. It's very risky, it's very dangerous, but we also just learn as we go, because we also don't know what we're doing. We're all just figuring it out and hoping that one day we'll become a Chris or another Chris or another Kevina Ukombele, but I learned something in the back here. And shoot your shot. You never know. Even all of you in the chat here, shoot your shot. You never know who's listening, who is like, you'll say, I attended the webinar with Wild and Sandbox and Brighter Monday. And you know what? Shoot your shot. You never know who is listening. I mean, rejection is such a small thing. If you see something, go for it. It's rejection. You'll heal from the rejection and you'll collect yourself and move on. And mine is just to say that for all again, I'm going to plug Sandbox here shamelessly, for all you employers who are trying to also just get your businesses right, structures and all these things. We have people like Kevina who are our primary HR experts at the Sandbox. We have people like Chris who are primary strategy experts at the Sandbox, this is where you need to be to also just develop that company that we are talking about here, that we want, the healthy company. This is where you need to come, so that now you also have access to some of these resources from HR, PR, legal, marketing. They're all available here at the Sandbox. Be sure to get in touch with us on our website, on our socials at karibu@sandboxgroup.com, and we'll be very happy to connect you to the next expert somewhere based on your needs. But yes, thank you so much also, Faustina, for being such a gracious host and for being such a gracious moderator. And thank you so much for having me as the face of the Gen Zs today.
Thank you so much. Your body language was also very fascinating throughout the session. Sucking with your hands and doing this and that. It was so interesting to see, but it's, you know, it's how you express yourself. So Chris Odongo, I think next time we will try, and if we have many Chris's in a webinar, we'll start using your second names to introduce you. But Chris Odongo, over to you. What is your clarion call, and what can you say about Wild? Or what does Wild have to offer?
I'll keep it brief. I see we are way over our time, and we need to respect our guests. Now, let me say this. Somebody has asked somewhere on the question Q&A, they're saying, why does an employer have to change to accommodate Gen Z? And why should Gen Z not change to fit in the organization? I think it's a valid question, but what I would like to say is that it's both employer and the Gen Z that need to change. And the reason that we both need to change is because the future is very different from the past. And the future is where we are going. So the past is behind us. We are all marching forward to the future. And we want to build companies that shall leave legacies, that shall grow and become hundreds of years old. And so we have to look forward. And when we look forward, it forces us then to change and to become better, because the world is changing. The world that our parents and our grandfathers and our ancestors lived in is not the world we live in. And neither is it the world that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren are going to live in. Change is constant. And so we must both change, adapt to embrace these new things. But even as we change, there's some things that remain timeless. If you do not have a valid business model, then basically you probably have a hobby, or you have something that, I don't know. So Wild International helps you to validate your business models. We help you to ensure that whatever it is that you're doing has a clear need, and the value proposition to your customers is also clear. Because it's on that you can now be able to build and say, this is the kind of talent I need in my business to deliver exceptional value to my clients and to make a profit while doing it. So if you come over to us, we shall help you develop the best strategies that can help you to win in the market. And I'll plug this by saying this. 80% of businesses that have their strategies done by Wild International report growth in their revenues within 2 months of engagement. This is something that we are tracking religiously, and we can promise you that if you engage with us, within 2 months, your business will turn around. So please reach out to us. We have free discovery sessions. We can come to your office and do for you a complimentary session to just help you think about your strategy. We can invite you into a one-on-one into our office. Just apply and let's hear from you. Again, for all the participants, thank you for taking time to come and work on your business. We really, really, really appreciate that you gave us your 1.5 hours. For the entire Wild team, thank you for organizing an amazing webinar. It reminds me of the good old COVID days where we used to do this every single week. So guys, stay tuned. We are going to be bringing you more fantastic conversations once every month. Keep to our social pages. Review us online. The links are there on the chat. And Faustina and the team, amazing job. To our guest, Kevina, to our guest, my namesake, Chris, to our guest, Wendy. We really, really, really appreciate each and every one of you for taking time to join us in this conversation, and we look forward to more. Please, entrepreneurs, take your shot, throw it on the chat. You never know who is going to connect with you. Thank you and have a good night. Back to you, Faustina.
Thank you so much. And Chris has done my job of thanking the panelists. So I'll give, I just want to say my co-hosts who have been so instrumental in giving me the chance to ask questions on their behalf. Thank you so much for honoring us with your attention. And as Chris has mentioned, this is just one of many more webinars or activities that Wild is going to be engaging in, as well as with Brighter Monday. We have partnered together, and there's a lot that will be coming in, and you'll be seeing those through our socials. So I also want to, on behalf of Wild, to apologize for taking an additional 15 minutes of your time. This was meant to end at 8:30, but the conversations were so good, they were so heavy. The examples shared, even the bouts between the Gen Z and the entrepreneur were actually interesting to see. If you hadn't noticed, these guys were kind of giving it to each other. You know, this is what you want, and this one is like, this is how things are, you know. Thank you so much for such kind of conversation. So I want to wish you well. Have a very good night, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next webinar. All right. Ciao, toodles from wherever you're coming from. Bye. Good night.